I've been asked to come up here and say a few words about Craig's impact on the community and WTOC. For those who know me know that normally I'm never at a loss for words. However, these past few days have been quite the struggle. Ironically, whenever I've hit such an impasse, Craig was always the person I could go to get me back on message. A call for help, I suspect he's taken from nearly everyone in this cathedral that he loves so much. The problem, there's just too much to say about Craig. How do you summarize 65 years of Craig Harney into just a few minutes? There are too many stories, too many moments, too many nicknames. Everyone had a nickname. Too many one-liners in just too little time, something we painfully learned on Saturday. Do I focus on his sense of humor? There is nothing better than hearing that boisterous laugh that would turn his face red and fill his eyes with tears. Or do I mention his absolute positive, never been better outlook on everything? Well, everything except getting stuck at a railroad crossing that has been and will forever now be known as getting Harney. Craig and I actually had a conversation about this and how to properly spell that, and we settled on HARNEY''D instead of ED. So now you know that. Craig's gift to us was his ability to see something great in each of us that we never saw in ourselves. When I was a young boy, the very first real nonfiction book I ever read was I Am Third, the autobiography written by Gail Sears, which inspired the movie Brian's Song. In it, Sears, a Hall of Fame football player, proclaims that God is first, family and others are second, and he is third. In Craig's book, it deviates just a little bit. For him, God and family are first, then comes WTOC, then Savannah, then this diocese, then St. Patrick's Day, then the United Way, then Junior Achievement, then every parade that ever graced a Main Street, then everyone else, and finally him. There wasn't a selfish bone in his body. Throughout his illness, Craig and I had many, many conversations. Not once did he complain about his pain and suffering. In fact, more times than not, he'd try and minimize it. Not once did he question God's will for him, or did his faith waver. Now, not once did he wonder why him. Through this entire ordeal, his only real concern and worry, and frankly pain, was that for Suzanne and his girls, Maggie and Annie, knowing that he wouldn't always be with her. I could come up with countless acts of selflessness on Craig's part, but the best and probably most recent occurred just a few weeks ago. Craig spent a week in the hospital, most of the time in ICU. When he was released on a Friday afternoon, he was able to convince his doctors, and more importantly Suzanne, to allow him to come to work on Saturday and Sunday for no more than 3 hours each of those days. Craig actually wanted to come into work because before he went in the hospital, he was not able to finish Cliff McCurry's Junior Achievement Business Hall of Fame video. Craig knew we were working on his laureate video, and he didn't think it was fair that he should have one and Cliff didn't. It never occurred to Craig to ask us to finish it for him. This just wasn't his nature. We could have, probably wouldn't have been as good as the one he completed, but that's not the point. Craig always wanted to finish what he started, no matter the sacrifice, and that's what made him Craig. Craig's gift for telling stories, his positive outlook, his passion for our community, which extended well beyond the streets of his beloved Savannah, is what made him so endearing to all. Be it the story of a business titan, a civil rights leader, a Monsignor, or waving to a farmer on a tractor in a parade, Craig's words, pictures, and actions always lifted us up. When reflecting on his 40 years at TOC, he said to him what was most fulfilling was the opportunity he had to tell us about the wonderful, fascinating people of our area. That too was his gift to us. But his talents just didn't lie there. Aside from being the best storyteller in Savannah, he too was a pretty darn good eater. The best eater we had at the station for decades. No buffet was safe in his presence, and his palate wasn't too discriminating, unless the food got too fancy. Quantity and value always won out over fine cuisine. Suzanne used to pack Craig a lunch. he had a fondness for bologna sandwiches, though he'd say they were mostly a carrier for the mustard. The problem was Craig would get to the station, get hungry, so lunch was gone before most of us even ate breakfast. From that point on, Craig would have to rely on the kindness of others to get him through the day. I was one of the many that would bring in leftovers from the night before to help him stave off hunger until he could make it home for one of Suzanne's home-cooked dinners. The other thing that Craig loved, as Father Schreck referenced, was his 1998 CBS Winter Olympic sweatshirt. Winter, summer, spring, fall didn't matter to him. That shirt was always in season. More than a few of us marveled at the durability of that sweatshirt, particularly given the overabundance of use. Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that I just found out a few months ago. Apparently there's more than one of those sweatshirts, and when he first brought them home, Suzanne stashed it away, the other one away, and would change them out without Craig's knowledge and switch them out as needed. So now we know the secret of the everlasting 21-year-old sweatshirt. Another piece of inside information, we put out a monthly newsletter at WTOC, and we asked one person each month to answer 11 questions. This month's newsletter was to feature Craig's answers. The 11th question is always, what are you most proud of? It won't come as a surprise to anyone sitting here that the first two words he said were his daughters. Craig wore his love for Maggie and Annie, much like he did that sweatshirt, out there for everyone to see and every single day. If you were to go into his office, you'll see a shrine to his girls. Pictures of them, pictures by them, and a lifetime of memories all adorn the walls. Against one wall sits a small desk he bought several years ago so Annie could come to the station and work on her homework while he was working on telling someone's story. Be it a cruise on the Marecraft carrier, a trip to the mountains, a kayak adventure on the back river, or a midnight showing of a new Harry Potter movie, Craig cherished each moment he spent with them. He loved nothing more than those reasonably affordable and marginally safe rickshaws that, again, the Father referenced. It meant a lot to him to ride around downtown Savannah and through Forsyth Park and then off to get a strawberry Danish with the girls. He reveled in their accomplishments, never assuming any part of it was a result of him being their father. He watched both of them grow into intelligent, vibrant, strong women who will each rule the world in their own separate ways. Yesterday, I happened into Craig's office. As I mentioned earlier, when I couldn't find the right words to say, I would turn to him. So I was hoping I'd find some inspiration in there. What I found was a note card with a poem Maggie had written out and given to Craig for one of his birthdays. She signed it, "Happy birthday to the one that continues to teach us how to love." That is Craig's impact on all of us. He taught us all how to love a little bit better. And we must now lean on those lessons to get us through today and the next day and the next day. And ultimately, it is that love that will keep Craig forever alive in our hearts and become his everlasting legacy.